the #1 news network. It's also where lies and never mind. A little bit more on Church Militant later, but I haven't done EVTN news for a while, and so I wanted to give you an update of EVTN news. Now, I don't know about the future of EVTN because there are some weeks where the news is very slow, and on this edition of EVTN news, I don't have a lot of articles to talk to you about, but I do have some, and a lot of EVTNs. There was a lot of information I wanted to cover, but I have covered some of these topics in different videos, so we'll just move on with starting with Vigano. So he had some statements on Cardinal Cupich, Tobin, Gregory, and he said they should not say Mass. But before that, I want to get to a part of his article, and you can find it in the link below, where Vigano says basically something I have said several months ago. So is Vigano watching EVTN news? That's debatable, but I'm going to try to paraphrase one of his quotes, understandably. He says, "Many do not realize the chaos this LMNOP stuff will cause not only in civil and family habits, but in religious ones as well. As soon as the recognition of the LMNOP movement inevitably leads to people with what may be defined as dysphoria demanding to be welcomed in parishes and communities. An emblematic example of this could be a case of a man ordained as a priest who at a certain point believes he identifies as a woman. Should we prepare for the eventuality of seeing Mass celebrated by a man who identifies as a woman? What should we think about the case of a nun who, developing a male self-perception, demands to be transferred to a religious community of men and perhaps even to receive holy orders?" Actually, I think we already saw that. There was a man who said he identified as a woman and he was trying to get into religious communities of nuns. And this was several months ago, and I don't know what happened with that. I think it kind of fizzled out, and I think Lifesite talked about this several months ago. But I mentioned that there would be a situation where a priest will be ordained, and then he'll say, well, I identify as a woman, so now I'm a female priest. So I think he should be kicked out if that's the case. But I'm surprised that no one has not tried this yet, because we see that priests are quitting to get married. We see that there was a priest in California that retired and so that he could get married. So he's like, well, I'm retired now, so I'll get married. And so I don't know. I think this is gonna, and Vigano comes up with this point. I already said it. So anyway, moving on to a little bit further down in the article, he talks about, and this was an interview, not an article, sorry, but he talks about the Cardinals in the United States. So I'm going to read the quote here. "On the other hand, so-called adult Catholics who in the eyes of God are simply rebellious against his holy law find widespread approval among bishops who are even more rebellious, like Cupich, Tobin, Gregory, and their followers, who are themselves unworthy of celebrating the sacred mysteries, while the pastors, who are faithful to the mandate conferred on them by our Lord, not only recognize their situation of public sin, but also do not wish to aggravate it with the profanation of the Blessed Sacrament." So this is really interesting how he says that Cupich, Tobin, and Gregory should not celebrate Mass. And this brings to my mind the idea of valid and licit masses. So Mass is valid if the priest is validly ordained and the words of the consecration are said. That's all that is required for a valid Mass. So when people say the Novus Ordo is invalid, well, I would actually disagree with that, as long as the words of the consecration are said. As in regards to the Mass being licit, though, if a priest is in the state of mortal sin when he says Mass, then it's not a licit Mass. So Vigano is saying, well, I mean, these cardinals, by promoting heresy, are in a state of mortal sin, so the Mass is not licit. At least that's what I believe he's suggesting here. So any Mass that you attend, and it's not like, well, I'm not so sure about that, but if it's blatant heresy, if the priest says blatant heresy from the pulpit, that would make him qualify him for being in a state of mortal sin, and so the Mass would not be licit. And that is why Mass or Orthodox liturgies are not licit, considered licit in terms of, from the Catholic perspective. So this is a really interesting statement. It's a very strong statement from Vigano, and that's why you need to find a traditional priest or a traditional liturgy, and hopefully the priests are not heretics, and the Mass will be licit. So that's that, and that's Vigano's interview. Check it out in the description below. A seminarian from the Diocese of Albany, New York, revealed that he was openly accused of a resistance to the formation process, and he was kicked out of the seminary after he said that a spiritual director embraced heterodox ideas and promoted the LMNOP agenda. And I think, in these situations, and you can check out the full details, in these situations, it's not over for the seminary. I mean, I know that they're going to be disappointed and, they're going to be hurt and all this stuff after being kicked out of the seminary for being a seemingly Catholic person. But it's like the priesthood does not exist exclusively in the diocesan model. And I think that's what people need to realize. If they're kicked out of the diocesan seminary for being Catholic, then they can find a traditional religious order, then join their seminary, join their formation process, and see how things work out for them. It might not be what they had envisioned in the first place, but if there's seriously a call to the priesthood, there are certainly multiple options for them to pursue. And I think with our video, Ryan and I's Thunder and Lightning video talking about don't become a diocesan priest, it just seems like with more and more of these stories, even if there's just a few here and there, it seems less and less desirable to become a diocesan priest. I mean, you're isolated. Recently, I did listen to a podcast where the person he mentioned briefly about isolation versus solitude. Now, I think under the diocesan priesthood model, there would be a lot of isolation. Isolation is a bad thing. Solitude is not, because you can take a walk in the woods, you can be by yourself and read the Bible, you can be at adoration by yourself in a empty church. That's solitude, and that's good. That's good because you can reflect on, what God's trying to say to you. You can, use it as a peaceful time, and you can just use it as a time for relaxation in solitude. And I'm a little bit of a bird nerd. If you check my alternate channel, Appleseed Outdoors, you can see that I film birds, and that's I can bird watch with other people, I can bird watch by myself, and that's solitude, and that's enjoyable. But the diocesan priesthood really promotes the isolation. Yeah, in this situation, it's really disappointing to hear about seminarians being kicked out of the diocesan seminary just for being Catholic. Encouraging news: Cardinal Gerard Muller celebrated the Latin Mass, and this was on July 11th. He was at the Benedictine Abbey of Le Bourreau, France. He ordained a monk in the Old Rite at the Benedictine Abbey, so that's really encouraging. Now, Gloria TV has a photo here, and you can watch. It looks like there's a video too of the 3-hour ceremony. So if you're interested in that, you can certainly watch that. Now, in terms of cardinals celebrating the Latin Mass, Cardinal Zen celebrates the Latin Mass, Cardinal Burke, and maybe Sarah, I can't confirm that, but also there was speculation that retired Cardinal Arenze celebrated the Latin Mass, and Benedict, before he was Benedict, Ratzinger, when he was Ratzinger, he celebrated the Latin Mass. But other than those guys, I don't know if there are any others. I think there are some good cardinals out there. They're not very well known, but maybe some of them have celebrated the Old Mass. I don't know. If you know of any cardinals, any additional cardinals to the ones I've named who celebrated the Old Mass, let me know in the comments. That would be very helpful. And but I know that there's probably only a handful of cardinals who have celebrated the Old Mass, but it's encouraging to see. There are more bishops that are celebrating the Old Mass, and if you can talk to your bishop, and if your bishop is not completely corrupt, you can encourage your bishop to say the Latin Mass. Say there are people that will help you out tremendously. They would be very excited to see you celebrate the Old Mass, and that's, I think, especially a lot of the good bishops, that's all the encouragement they need. Just tell them that the faithful are really excited for something like this, and they will do that. But obviously it really depends on your diocese, who the bishop is, and what his priorities are. But as for the Cardinals, hopefully we can see more Cardinals celebrate the Old Mass, especially the ones. There are a lot of Cardinals being named from like the peripheries, the isolated regions, the lesser-known regions, and maybe they would be interested in celebrating the Old Mass if they're more exposed to it, especially if they're taking trips to Rome and interacting with some of the good Cardinals. Who knows? Who knows? This could be an increasing event where Cardinals celebrate their first Latin Mass more and more frequently. That's my hope. I don't know if that's my expectation, but we can always pray for it, we can hope for it, and I think it's going to happen, and I hope you do too. The city of Tokyo, Japan is hosting the Olympics in just a month here, and the Tokyo Archbishop has asked Olympic athletes and coaches to refrain from attending local Catholic churches to prevent the spread of the virus. So, Archbishop Tarcisio Isio Kikuchi said that the Archdiocese made a commitment that we will not be infected, nor will we allow others to be infected, and they asked for the Olympic athletes to refrain from visiting churches, which I don't know how many of the athletes are Catholic. I would imagine in some of the countries there's a larger Catholic population than others, but they would all, appreciate attending Mass, especially if the Catholic faith is a priority for them. But unfortunately, this Archbishop, he's, come on. This is pathetic. This is what we've come to expect from our bishops, though, sadly. And Japan's gone crazy. There's no fans that are going to be allowed at their events, which I think is, whatever, If they want to do that, they can certainly do that. But trying to just not destroy the faith, but trying to diminish the faith of the faithful is not a very good evangelization tactic, is it? Especially if you're looking to retain people, because that's what the Catholic Church is having trouble doing right now, is retaining people. It's not even bringing people in. That's really hard to do, unless they're coming to the Latin Mass. It's just really hard to retain people from to stay Catholic, especially the younger people, which a lot of these athletes are younger people. And so what's that do for their faith? Well, it certainly doesn't help. And this bishop is part of the problem, and it's unfortunate that I don't know, maybe he's working with the state. I don't know, but we saw it in the United States in April, May of last year, 2020, and it seems like we see it in Europe a lot more now. It's being pretty extended, where a lot of the bishops are closing down churches and saying, "Oh, we can't keep them open." Like, come on, this is ridiculous, and we're still dealing with it over a year later. I don't get it. But, unfortunately, these bishops are the ones, they're going to, and, the older ones, they're not really going to deal with the fallout of this too much. They'll live on their retirement probably pretty nicely, but they're passing it on to younger bishops, and the younger bishops are going to have to deal with this fallout. And it's not going to be nice. Financial situation is going to be pretty sad for a lot of dioceses, but what can you do? The bishops have made this decision, and their successors are going to be the ones that are going to deal with it. And finally, I want to close by talking about Church Militant launching multiple attacks against the SSPX. And it's, Voris, Niles, and we've come to see this, but they've launched particularly hateful attacks towards Taylor Marshall. In Lifesitenews, Voris has specifically called out those two entities, Taylor Marshall and Lifesitenews. And he said, why do you continue to support the SSPX, all this stuff, and of course the name calling, and it's gotten particularly vicious this past week. And you can check, I'm not even going to link anything, but you can check their Twitter for, if you really want to see what they're saying about the SSPX. It's just, the tone is particularly spiteful. And tone doesn't usually matter, but in this case, I think just their incessant, repeated attacks against the SSPX is certainly very concerning. But now they're alienating people who were originally their allies. Both Taylor Marshall and Lifesitenews have, they've promoted the SSPX a little bit. Taylor Marshall, he said he attended an SSPX mass whenever he had no other masses available. Okay, I think that's perfectly fine. And he interviewed an SSPX priest, and he's given some opinions where he's kind of a Lefebvre supporter, which, I mean, I've pretty much said that on this channel. And Lifesitenews has promoted the SSPX a little bit, but I think my thing is, like, if you don't like the SSPX, if you're not comfortable with attending their mass, don't attend their mass. Like, it's not a big deal. And I did see an interesting tweet on Twitter where the person said that they think that church militants' attacks are coming because Summorum Pontificum, there's a rumor Summorum Pontificum, the anti-Summorum Pontificum motu proprio is going to be released this upcoming Friday. And they think that church militants launching that attack in advance of that motu proprio being released so that people will follow church militant rather than the SSPX. I don't know. Who really knows? And who really knows if this motu proprio will be released on Friday? In other news, Pope Francis was released from the hospital. He had surgery, and there were rumors swirling around. There was even a rumor that said he was going to resign. Yeah, okay. But there were rumors like, oh, his health condition is serious, But, rumors are rumors. And there's people that have sources in the Vatican, but who has a source? Whose source is accurate? And it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to talk extensively about rumors. So on this channel, I will mention rumors, I will talk about them, but not to the extent where rumors become like the bulk of my reporting. I don't even do reporting. What am I talking about? The bulk of my discussion is not rumors. And so with the Summorum Pontificum thing coming up, who really knows? Potentially coming up. Because, it was supposed to be released soon, and everyone was talking about that. Just kind of like the McCarrick report, right? It was supposed to be released for like 4 years, and they finally released it, and it was a big disappointment. But the Summorum Pontificum document, is it really going to change anything if it's even released? Who knows? And when it's released, I can react to it. But until then, I don't know the contents of it. You don't know the contents of it. None of us knew. It's the people in Rome that know, and the rumors aren't going to tell you anything. So that's all I have to say on that. So this has been EVTN News. We're live. This has been EVTN News, where we identify as the #1 news program in the world, and the #1 Catholic news channel, of course. The ratings, our ratings are massive. They're the biggest ratings. They're the greatest ratings. The ratings are very bigly. they're huge. They're even bigger than EWTN. EVTN. V comes before W in the alphabet. EVTN, that makes EVTN above EWTN ratings somehow, because we identify with that. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.